the Team Performance Podcast with Spencer Horn and Christian Napier. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Team Performance Winning Ways for Uncertain Times podcast. I'm Christian Napier, and I am joined, as is the custom, by the renowned international speaker and expert of all things with teams and communication and everything, my good friend, Spencer Horn. Spencer, how are you?
Wonderful, Christian, and good to be with you today. You know, and you're the international man. I mean, you live practically in Switzerland.
Well, not these days. Like you,
No.
I mean, we're all sequestered here in our homes, not able to travel. And I just got word from the IOC last week that my travel for the rest of the year is done. So everything that I'll be doing with the International Olympic Committee will be done remotely. So I may not even be getting on a plane the rest of this year.
How do you feel about that?
A bit bittersweet, actually, because I love being home, but I also enjoy getting out and seeing people face to face, and it's a little bit more difficult in these challenging times. Even though Zoom and other technologies are quite helpful to allow us to see each other, I still do miss that in-person interaction, face to face.
You know, being home, it's great because we have a little more time with family. And my son, I don't know if I've said this in the past, but my son, Sam, he found this system. I think I told you about all the Marvel movies chronologically. We've been watching. We finally finished that. And so on Monday, we started something new and we watched Hamilton. I don't know if you've had the chance to see that on Disney Plus, but we just watched that on the original cast. I've seen it live twice. I actually love it live better, but it was really, really cool to see Hamilton with the original cast.
I haven't watched it. My daughter watched it last week and she loved it, but I haven't had the opportunity to watch it yet, but I definitely have it on my list. And speaking of the weekend, did you do anything fun for the 4th?
We did. We had an interesting 4th of July. My second daughter invited us down to Provo, Utah. So they have that, Stadium of Fire every year. And of course, no one could go to the stadium. So they actually made the fireworks like 1,500 feet or twice as high as they normally go. So people could stay at home and watch those. But we went down there in the afternoon. My wife and I went for a hike in the morning with my son and then took a little relaxing nap. And then we went down and we made homemade sushi, oh my gosh, it's what's that fried Japanese? I'm going crazy. I can't even think.
Tempura?
Tempura. Yes, we made homemade tempura and mochi. My daughter made ice cream homemade mochi. So we had this Japanese. We're going to talk about food with our guest here in a second, but we had this really interesting Japanese homemade dinner, and it was fabulous for 4th of July. It was very strange.
No better way to celebrate an all-American holiday than with Japanese food.
Exactly. What did you do?
We had a very low key. We actually had American food. We barbecued burgers in the backyard, and we just had a low key time here with our immediate family. So it was good. We didn't do any fireworks. We did walk out the front door and gaze a few minutes at the fireworks that some of the neighbors were doing. But yeah, we just had a nice relaxing holiday weekend.
Well, that's great. And so that topic, actually, I want to hear what it was like in California for the 4th of July. So we're going to introduce our guest.
Yes, please do, Spencer. She's been waiting patiently.
I know, she's sitting there. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. Her name is Hadil Penalvert, and she's coming to us from Tustin, California, Orange County, California. And welcome, Hadil. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Great. So before I introduce all of your bona fides, tell us about what was it like to celebrate the 4th of July? I think Governor Newsom said, no celebrations in California. Is that right?
Yeah, they closed the beach right before 4th of July. I think they were anticipating that people were going to be all over the place. I personally, I'm 3 months pregnant and I stayed home just to be a little bit more careful. But we have a pool. We definitely had some Lebanese food. Talking about food, you got me hungry. Yeah, we have a pool. We just relaxed a little bit, my husband and I, and just a couple of, two other people. But yeah, it was just pretty relaxing. It was very different than every year. I can tell you that. Very different.
Yes. So tell us some of the Lebanese, because I know you're originally from Lebanon. Is that right, Hadil?
Yes.
And so tell us what your favorite, because Christian and I love all kinds of food. We love Middle Eastern food. We love all kinds. So what's your favorite Lebanese food? And I've got a list of some that I like.
So there's in Lebanon, there's what you call, so Lebanese dinners and lunch, literally they last for 3 to 4 hours. And you have at first the meza, so it's everything from the tabbouleh to the hummus to all of the little things. I would say definitely one of my favorite dishes. It's a cinnamon rice. I know it sounds a little weird, but it's a rice that they put cinnamon in it, and a lot of other spices, and it has like ground beef, and then you make some chicken on the side. Definitely, this is one of my favorite that I'm actually craving right now. And then there's grape leaves. They roll it with some, I think you might have seen the version is a little sour maybe. You see it in the store. But they rolled with some rice and little meat inside, and then you cook it for a couple of hours. My grandma is the best at this, but she is far away right now. So I've been asking my mom to make it recently.
So that sounds delightful, Christian. How about you? Are you hungry for some of that?
Yeah, I think we should just end the podcast now and go have some falafel and baba ganoush and whatever else you got on your list. I'm all for it, 100%.
Have you ever had like kibbeh, that sauteed pine nuts?
Yes, really good. Kibbeh. So kibbeh is in the meza, right? This is what you get at the beginning in the first couple of hours of the lunch.
Couple hours, right? Then you've got like manakish, which is like your Lebanese pizza.
Yes, this is a breakfast. My husband is obsessed with it. We used to have American brunch, and now every Sunday he's like, "Hey, let's go have some manaish."
So I said it completely wrong, but I like kafta, which is that lamb or beef meatballs, and of course you mentioned hummus. Who doesn't like that? And then there's another salad, fattoush salad, a little different than
Look at
tabbouleh.
you, all of the Lebanese foods. I'm impressed.
The Team Performance Podcast.
Well, we like to get out and have different things, but so we're so excited to have you. I just want to tell the individuals listening to us a little bit about you. And you are a clinical social worker, and you completed your master's in this at USC in 2016. And Hadil, you have worked with all kinds of different populations throughout your career, specializing in working with women and children and trauma-informed care, right? And that's something that I'm really excited about, Christian, because as we talk about team performance, individuals are being impacted right now by being isolated, just the social distancing, working from home. Some of us are like, wow, this is great, but long term, we're going to talk about some of the impacts that this isolation has on our mental health. And so we're going to get to that. But you're the clinical coordinator at Laura's House. That's how I actually met you. I was speaking at Laura's House, which is an agency that provides services to domestic violence survivors. And you personally oversee the clinical department, and you manage a team of 6 people, and you work with the therapists that are in Laura's House. Is that correct?
They're all
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And so you have worked and volunteered internationally and in the US with women and children. And Christian, she is passionate about mental health. When I had a talk with her, she was very excited to really talk about, resilience and what helps us to be able to be resilient in these hard times. And basically when she has an opportunity to help people, she does. I mean, she's all about social justice, and she never misses a chance to lead the way, whether it's motivating others or supporting them in reaching their goals. And so I'm really excited to hear her perspective as someone who's lived in the United States for many years, been through the education system here, lived in Africa, born and raised in Lebanon. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say today.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you, Spencer. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really honored to be on the podcast with both of you.
Thank you. So can you start off? I think the best thing that I would like for you to just kind of, well, let me back up. What got you into this social working and mental health and social justice? What was it that attracted you to this field?
So I grew up in Africa, right? I'm Lebanese, but I grew up in Africa for probably, I would say, anywhere between 12 to 14 years, if I remember. And seeing a lot of the injustice and a lot of poverty and a lot of people that don't have access to just education, resources, and all of that. But then when I was in high school, I just started thinking a little bit about what I want to do, and I kept on coming back to something that I wanted to be fulfilling, and I wanted to have a purpose. So I wanted my career to be aligned with what I think were my values and my purpose. Everyone kept on telling me, well, you don't make a lot of money in the field, which is very true. You don't make a lot of money when you work in the field, but it just kept on coming back to, I do not want to be stuck in a 9 to 5 job where I feel like I'm miserable. I want to show up every day and feel like I'm making a difference. And I've always been very into, social justice issue and just advocating for people. So it took me, it was a long way until I get there, but I did different, I work with special needs kids, and then I would get into social work when I moved to the state because, I went to French schools all of my life and I didn't have my major. So I looked into, okay, what is it that I can get into that could give me the tools to be there in the community and, provide resources to people and be there to support them. So it's a really rewarding and fulfilling job, definitely. And, I would say up to now, it's been I'm on my 10th year, and it's really, every year is different. And I don't think I have gone through a phase where I feel like, okay, well, this is not for me.
It's interesting that you talk about loving what you do, and money. When we research what motivates people, money is like fourth on the list. And I just published an article today called Love What You Do. And it's so great to hear that that's something that you do, because I think that's important to mental health when we have challenges. And there's always going to be things that we don't like to do at work. And I'm sure there's things that you deal with right now that are frustrating and hard, but when you love it, ultimately that helps you get through those challenging times and maybe not earning as much, right?
Yeah. Burnout is a big thing, I think, in our field too, because, helping people and giving all the time can be, you can have your cup can be empty at one point. So it's really important to really take care of yourself. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think we all have our moments where we feel like, okay, this is maybe getting a little too much, or I'm having a hard day. But when you get out of work, there's always that sense and that feeling of, okay, I did something today for someone or for the community or for anyone. I made a difference. And sometimes it's not by doing anything, for a lot of our classes, just by being there for them, just having that safe space for them to be themselves and be able to express themselves.
Well, before we get into the topics, I just have to ask a quick question. Whereabouts in Africa did you live for 12 or 14 years?
It's in West Africa. It's called Ivory Coast. And actually my dad still lived there, so he comes and goes. But it's really, it's very different. Definitely very, very different than here.
The Team Performance Podcast.
So one of the things that I was interested in, because you work at Laura's house, I've had some experience with working with women's crisis centers. I've had challenges with people that I know personally with domestic violence. I currently sit as an advisory board member for an organization called the Shiro Foundation, which helps support young women and girls who are victims of abuse, neglect, sex trafficking. And my question to you as we get started in talking about this is, have you seen an increase in need for shelter, for protection? Because it would seem like, as we're forced to be together, people are not working, economic hardship, that instances of domestic abuse and violence may actually be increasing, or people are more stressed now than they've ever been. What are you seeing and noticing right now, Hadil?
There's definitely has been an increase since the COVID has happened, because people are stuck at home together. And then there's really no way for you to just have any type of little freedom that was maybe that you had before. So we've definitely had a big increase in our calls to the hotline about people just wanting services and wanting some support. I feel like the shelter situation has been a little bit tricky because of the COVID. Before they get into shelter, they have to get into a safety net house and then stay there for a couple of days and kind of be cleared before they get into shelter. And then also there's this uncertainty, right, about these times right now, like economic, schools, and a lot of the other things. So it's already hard for people to leave when there is, things are kind of normal. And, I don't know what's normal nowadays, but it's making it a little harder right now to get for them to leave. But they're asking a lot of counseling. We're doing a lot of counseling. We've been doing a lot of safety planning, which is preparing them for any incident that might happen or anything, what can they have ready if they need to leave and all of this. So we're doing much more of that and a lot of crisis interventions and crisis support. But there's also been, a lot of people that have left recently, whether they went into a shelter or just left in general their relationship, which is pretty awesome to see, because it takes a lot of courage and bravery to leave, a relationship that you're in with all the dynamics of abuse is very complicated.
So that takes me to a question. And when people are together for a long time, maybe the opportunities to reach out for help, they might be a little bit more limited because they're around each other all the time. And so it might be a bit more challenging to find a safe place to reach out from. So have you, in your experience here with COVID, seen any of that where people have had a more difficult time reaching out because they're just around that unsafe situation all the time because their significant other or whoever, a parent or spouse, a relative, is just in the house all the time?
Yeah, definitely. And, there's different kind of techniques or ways to do that. Well, first we have people that are not comfortable at all reaching out on the phone because, people have their phone tapped or their emails. The partner is checking all of these. What we've been doing is we've been using Google numbers. So when you call, it doesn't show this Laura's house, it doesn't show anything. But we always ask the clients, is that a safe number? Or can you go somewhere in the car, maybe pretend you're going to get groceries and call us? Can you go to your, mom or your family or a friend just for that 1 hour to be able to talk to us? But definitely it has been challenging. We have put some rules in place, like, for example, for the confidentiality and safety of, when they're doing group, if there is anything that happens, just drop them out of the call. So we're being a little more extra careful. There's definitely precautions that we're taking more, but for some of our clients, it has been very difficult. As soon as they know that they can't come into the office, it's like, okay, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. We also teach them how to secure their phones. This is part of safety planning. So how to maybe, make it a little more secure so the partner can know who they're talking to or what has been going on or where did they go to.
How do you do that? I mean, share that with our listeners that maybe are concerned, and how do they reach out? Because this is a serious issue. I mean, people that are, those of you who are listening to us today, if you're in a situation where you're being threatened, and that's a high likelihood because apparently, according to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women is a victim of abuse by an intimate partner, someone that's close to them. Is that a fairly accurate number?
Yeah, and it's really any type of socioeconomic status. It doesn't really differentiate between anyone, ethnicities or socioeconomic status. It's really everywhere.
The Team Performance Podcast.
So, I mean, so tell them, I mean, what if you're listening to this and you're in a situation where you're unsafe, I mean, what can she do?
So they can call the hotline if they go to the Laura's House website, and this is where maybe putting their page as private when they're looking up for these stuff so they don't stick in the search history, calling, and then, erasing the number after. But even if the partner calls us, we call, our numbers are blocked so they can't see who's calling. And we always make sure if we know that it's high risk with the client. Maybe there's a word that we, agree on at first, or just a couple of little things. But the first step I would say is just to make the call, and then we try to figure out from there, okay, how do we safety plan? What do we need to do? Because I think every case is different too. Like you'll see some more people that have more support. This is when we tell them maybe go to someone's house, or pretend to go walk your kids at the park, or go to the grocery stores, and then give us a call. And then from there, we try to plan accordingly and see what we can do to make that person, to keep them safe. But
Well,
definitely the
go
help.
ahead.
No, that's it. Yeah.
I know your IT services are very careful about anything that's coming in to your company, because I've emailed you and nothing I send you ever gets through, because everything that comes from me is blocked.
Yes, we're very careful about that.
Oh, that's great. So sorry, Christian, I'm going to throw it back over to you. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. And the question is, how, in addition to these measures, which having the private block numbers and whatnot, I mean, fear is such a powerful driver of behavior, and fear can keep people from reaching out. And so it sounds to me like what you're doing here is trying to provide people with sufficient confidence to actually overcome that fear. In addition to some of these, technical things, private browsing, block numbers, what advice do you give people to help them overcome their fear and find the internal strength to actually reach out?
I think everyone is ready at a different timing. I think the most important thing for us therapists at Laura's House, and all of the staff that works directly with clients, is to let the client know that they have the choice to back off if they make that first call, right? So we don't force anyone to stay in the program. We don't tell people, oh, you have to leave or you have to do that. This is a personal choice. And really, it's really hard to make decisions. People have to make decisions for themselves. But, going back to that kind of sense of community, when they get into one of our groups and they meet other women that have been going through the same thing, there's that confidence that builds up a little bit of, okay, because people are at different stages in these groups. Some have already left. Some are still in the relationship. Some have still hope that the relationship is going to work out at one point. But hearing other people and being with other people that have similar, not exactly the same, but similar experiences, it gives you that confidence to make your own decision and to be like, okay, this is something I want to continue or not. So definitely I would say just, that making that first call, and knowing that even if you make that first call, it doesn't mean that you have to stick with, going through the program or doing any of that.
Well, thank you. I mean, those are important things that we need to know and understand for people who may be anyone. If you are experiencing that, what there's so many options available to you. And Laura's House is not just in California and Los Angeles. It's in many places around the United States. I would like to, though, as we talk about team performance, members of your team that you work with, you have direct reports. We have people that are listening right now that are managing, they're working from home. They are, just struggling right now. I just had a conversation with a very successful recruiter yesterday, and she's amazing, and she does very, very well for herself. And business is good, and of course she's been pivoting during these times, but she's in high demand. But really struggling mentally just with the isolation and all of the separation, not being able to meet with clients or being with friends. And I have lots, Christian, you and I have talked about how supposedly extroverts are doing better during this time. I don't know, as that research goes on, if that's going to hold up, because a lot of them that I'm talking to are really starting to struggle with just feeling resilient and being able to get up and attack the day. With your experience in mental health, can you talk a little bit about that and what you're seeing and maybe some things that would help?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to what you said about extroverts, I think, from what I've noticed, and, a lot of people have been around, I think even introverts are struggling at this point too. Because, I think as human beings, we're born to live in community and to be around people. And, at first it worked for some people because you're like, oh, some people thrive in a specific environment, which is maybe their element is being at home, right? But when it becomes 2 months and 3 months and 4 months, and there's that unknown, right? I think it's really putting a lot of stress on people, and just the isolation is creating a lot of anxiety and depression. What we've done, and again, we as when we work with a team of therapists, the good thing is everyone wants that deeper connection because that's what we do also, right? It was really hard because what we do is between sessions, we kind of talk to each other about our clients or what's going on, or, hey, I have this, do you have any feedback, or, is there any interventions that you're using? So it was really difficult at first, but, finding ways to stay connected. Like specifically at Laura's house, they've done happy hours with specific themes where everyone can kind of come in and just feel connected. For us, the therapists, we have like a group text where we've been texting each other constantly about, sometimes it's just jokes, sometimes it's just, asking, hey, like, this is what's going on with me, sharing interventions. And we've been trying to, now, I think now we're transitioning a little bit back to the office. But when we were not seeing each other at all, we were trying to do happy hours on Friday at the end of the week on Friday at 5, just to talk a little bit about what's going on during the week and stay connected. I definitely feel like it's different than just being there with the people. There is something, technology is great. We can, just like you're in Utah and I'm in California right now, and we can, we can be on the same platform together, but really trying to find ways to stay connected. Stay connected through maybe FaceTime, through these group messages, talking a little bit more. I think you have to put a little bit more effort when you don't see people because you're completely not physically together. And just, I think also being really supportive a little bit extra than usual. Like, hey, are you doing okay? How is your caseload going? How is your week going? Is there anything coming up? Especially in our field, because we talk a lot about these things within each other because, well, we can't share stuff with other people because of confidentiality.
The Team Performance Podcast.
Talk about, Hadil, when it comes to mental health, what is the impact that you're seeing just of society here in the United States, and maybe what you've experienced that we can do differently, or maybe what some other cultures are doing to be able to support each other during these challenging times when we're isolated? How does how we live as Americans maybe add to this mental health crisis that we're experiencing?
I definitely feel like people have been increasingly anxious and depressed, especially that it's taking even longer. Now there's rumors that, maybe there's going to be another lockdown. It's taking too long. So people are isolating a little bit more. We've seen an increase in substance abuse because, well, you're home, you're kind of in that environment, you're isolated, and it's a way to numb really what's going on. I don't know exactly, I would say, in terms of what other cultures are doing, because I feel like every country right now is dealing differently with how the COVID is going. But definitely what I've seen really help is people kind of gather outdoors, right? A really small group of people, just be outdoors and keep that social distancing maybe, but still be able to get out. Getting outdoors is really, for mental health, has been proven. And a lot of research that being outdoors and just being in the sun, or, just not being inside. I feel like we're in boxes all the time, in the office, in the car, there's always that inside. So getting outdoor really has been helping with depression and anxiety, but also finding creative ways to stay connected, right? Just talking a little bit more. And again, I feel like everyone is comfortable with different things at this point. Some people are really scared about, seeing other people. Some people are maybe a little bit open to seeing some specific people that they regularly see. But getting outdoors, staying connected, and putting that effort, because what happens is the more you get depressed or anxious, the more you want to isolate, right? And it's counterintuitive to want to connect, to want to reach out. But forcing ourselves in these moments, because it always feels good after reaching out. There's not a time where you feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So really making it a point to reach out to specific people throughout the week that you can get support from. And getting outdoors, I wouldn't say that it's really, really important, definitely.
So I 100% agree with the outdoors. I've always felt that. My exercise routine has been mountain biking and trail running, and because I just have to get outside. And I find that all kinds of ideas come to me. It's very productive, and I always feel great, whether it's raining, whether it's sun shining, even in the snow. Just getting out and being outside is so cathartic and has been wonderful for me personally. Christian, you going to come up and go running with me? Or I can come down to you and we'll go up in the mountains.
I will walk with you. More than happy to do that. Running, I got to work up to that one a little bit, but yeah, I'd be more than happy to go on a
running
nice walk.
That's a relative term. Running, it's more like loping. Not slow jogging.
And humor, definitely humor. I think these are very stressful times, and I'm a big believer in humor, and I think it just makes things different. So joking about the situation, just making things just a little bit lighter, because it is pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy being isolated, and especially on kids too. I mean, kids are not used to being home without their friends and without going to school. So, trying just little things that feels counterintuitive, like, oh, I don't want to reach out to someone because I don't feel good, but it will feel good.
The Team Performance Podcast.
I appreciate the humor comment, because not only are we feeling isolated, but there's an incredible amount of contention here, specifically in the United States, for political reasons. And we also have the nexus of the virus with a lot of social unrest. And so the atmosphere is a bit supercharged, and that's really antithetical to high team performance, because for teams to perform at a high level, they need to be united toward a common goal. So in your experience, Hadil, aside from humor, which I think is a great idea, and getting outdoors, how can we try to reduce the amount of contention that we see in our lives, and try to build some sense of unity when we're all isolated?
Yeah, I think, going back to that sense of community, again, when you don't have that physical presence, it's really maybe difficult to feel connected. But, continuing to, who are the people in your community that you feel you have common interests or that you can talk to freely? I feel definitely finding the people that can offer safe space and non-judgment. There's been people get really judgmental, especially when there's a lot of emotions that are high. So trying to connect with people that offers that non-judgmental space, definitely trying to find that community. When you find that community, you feel no matter where you are, like for me, I still feel connected to my community back in Lebanon, to my friends. I talk to them very often. And, now I was supposed to go this summer, but again, I think just like you, I'm probably not getting on a plane for the next couple of months. But, talking about things that this similar interest, this similar vision, kind of sharing all of this and staying connected to people, despite how difficult it's getting to do that. I feel like at the beginning, people were really excited also, like with all the Zooms and FaceTime, and the more time is passing by, you're seeing also a decrease in motivation for that. Because you thought it was, people thought it was temporary, but then it's kind of still going on.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I see that with kids and students. They're just like sick of classrooms and Zoom. They want to be together. They want to connect. And I think it's right. I mean, a lot of companies are, and I think we're going to talk about this in more detail in a future podcast. A lot of companies are going virtual, and it's good, and it's going to be a challenge because we lose that sense of community. It takes more work. It takes more energy and effort. And you actually articulated that very well. And I agree with that. I actually, for a time, I had 4 or 5 people in the Philippines that were a part of my team. And like I said, we'll talk about that later, but it takes a lot of work to actually feel connected to them, to stay connected to them, to make sure that they're on track, what they're doing, what we need them to do. And so I get it. There's almost a rebellion right now where people don't want to be on these electronic devices. They want to be together.
Yeah.
And I think, and I want you to talk about that, because I feel like, as Americans, we're a society that, very individualistic, right? Do what you want to do, go where you want to go, just everybody kind of doing their own thing. And I don't know, maybe the society has allowed us to be able to do that because we've had some form of connection, but now that's been taken away from us, there's a need to really to get to back to our roots, to connect more as a society and as a people.
Yeah. I definitely think when you're giving choice, right? If I have the choice to see you or not see you, then I can make the choice to do that. But when I'm forced not to, then it's completely taken away. There's kind of this withdrawal after a while, right? And this is what I was saying even about introverts. I know this sounds really weird, but I'm an introvert myself. And, I love enjoying time by myself, especially with what I do is I give all weekend. I'm there for people, right? So when the weekend comes, there's more of that feeling of wanting to just be by myself or just do some activities that are, very relaxing and just doesn't involve a lot of people. And let me tell you, the first month or two, I was pretty happy because, now I didn't have plans that were, okay, I have to attend this birthday, I have to do that, I have to see these friends to stay connected. But it's starting to get really hard, because you want to be around people. And again, it's human nature, right? Whether we like it or not, we are born to live in communities and to be with other people. And now it's starting to feel like, okay, it's been a long time, right? And we don't have the choice. So having that choice taken away, I think is really creating these withdrawals, definitely.
The Team Performance Podcast.
Hadil, I'd like to come back to something you said a few moments ago, and that was the idea of surrounding yourself with people that have common interests and people that you feel you can talk to in a non-judgmental way where you can feel safe. And I totally agree with that. One of the, one of the challenges I think with that is that sometimes I find myself inadvertently entering an echo chamber that drives up anger and anxiety, where we have common agreement on things that are not going well, and we just start talking about all the things that are going to pot in the world, and pretty soon I feel worse than I did at the beginning, even though these people are my friends and we do have some common interests. So what are some things that we can do to yes, find a safe space in a non-judgmental place, but at the same time, not find ourselves in an echo chamber where we just get all riled up and we feel even more anxious and more stressed than when we started?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of the anxiety and anger that comes up when we have these conversations with people, even that people that we have common interests for, that we're really close to, is feeling not listened to, right? If I feel like you're not listening to me or my point, you're just maybe listening to give me an answer, I'm going to get defensive. I'm going to start having these negative thoughts, and my emotions are going to start stirring up. But if I know that you're listening, and no matter what I'm saying, you're just taking in all of this and you just want me to express myself, there's less of that feeling defensive a little bit, right? So I'm going to express myself, and then maybe you're going to comment on it, but maybe you're just going to validate. I feel like validation is really important. And it's what drives really conversation in one direction or the other. If I'm expressing something to you, even if it's a different opinion or, something that really upsets me, if you try, to give me a solution right away, or you try to, come back with an argument, or you try to, just respond to that right away, I'm probably going to feel defensive, especially if it's a topic that, is close to my heart, or a topic that stirs a lot of emotions. But if I do all of this and then you on your end is validating, and just, these are simple techniques that we use in therapy, like just rephrasing or summarizing what you just said, or, kind of highlighting maybe the emotion that you're feeling, like, hey, Christian, it sounds like you're feeling pretty angry about what's going on. I can kind of see that. This will get you to talk a little bit more about what's going on, rather than really feeling like you have to defend yourself or you have to say something else. So really validation is key in relationships, in listening, because that's what we all need. And this is why therapy, I don't feel like as therapists, we do much with clients in terms of, I mean, I know we have specific interventions that we use, but a lot of the time building that rapport, you're going to someone that, you don't know, and you're about to tell them about your deepest secrets and your deepest fears and challenges. So for you to be able to do that, you have to know that this person is listening to you. And to know that this person listening to you, you have to feel validated. And it's really crucial in conversations. And also, I just can add to that. And sometimes, people, I feel like it's also maybe things that not all of us have the chance to know, right? And it's just expressing to the person like, hey, I've noticed maybe when I, speak to you about a specific topic, you have a tendency maybe to give me a solution or to do that. I think I'll feel better if blah, blah, blah. So using I statements and telling the people, I think we all learn. We're not perfect, and, we can all make improvements in how we can support each other, in these communities. I don't know if that answers your questions, Christian.
Well, one important thing that you, well, actually a couple of important things you talked about were some different techniques, and I don't use the word pejoratively. I think they're good. Some different ways to communicate more effectively, because I find this in my own situation where there are people that are close to me that are really struggling with finding some hope. They're really having a hard time, and I probably am too prescriptive in my communication with them. Well, try doing this, try doing that, and maybe that will be helpful. And maybe what I need to do is just give them that validation that, okay, what I hear you saying is this is how you're feeling, and that's okay to be feeling that way. So they don't actually take my advice that well sometimes, because they think I'm being a little bit too prescriptive and trying to solve their problem, and maybe what they just need is someone to listen to them.
Yeah. And you might see a different result, because then the person, I think the point of validation is also every person know what's best for themselves. And our role is just to support each other into, okay, but by saying all of the expressing yourself, you're also hearing yourself talk, and you're hearing yourself say things. So sometimes automatically this will kind of shift the outcome. Maybe they'll realize that one of your advice, and I think later after the validation can come, hey, have you tried this and this? Maybe this has worked for me, maybe it will. But also knowing that not specific advice that we give to people might work for us, but might not work for, everyone.
The Team Performance Podcast.
Hadil, we're kind of running out of time, but I know when you and I spoke, you had some great insights as to just, as I said, your international experience in terms of how we cope with stress, and how we are as a society can help us overcome some of these mental health challenges and be more resilient. Why don't you share some of those thoughts as we wrap up this morning?
Yeah, I think definitely going back to that concept of community is finding the community that you feel supported in. And sometimes this is, this could be, in your environment, like geographically where you live. It could be maybe where you work. I feel like it's definitely easier for therapists to have this community at work because of what we do, right? But it could be anywhere, right? Some people is just going to a yoga studio, and then there's people that you meet there that have the same interests. I feel like the society here can be really isolated and I've noticed if you don't have maybe friends from high school that you're still friends with, or friends from the same place that you live at, it can be difficult making new friends because people are at different stages in their life. But finding these people that you have common interests or that you feel safe with. Sometimes you don't have common interests, but it's people that you feel a connection with. And putting effort, relationships takes effort, right? There's no relationship that just stays the way it is because no one is doing anything. It's being proactive in co-creating that relationship and that connection. And just, reaching out to that community and being around people, I definitely think it will make a difference in people's lives, because a lot of the times people feel they go through some stuff and they feel like, well, I don't have anyone to share that to, right? And then they end up maybe using, drugs, or they end up just, bottling things up, and then there's a big event that happened and then they feel really down. So finding that community wherever it is, and even if it's, it doesn't have to be a huge one, it could be 2 to 4 people, sometimes and sticking to these and putting the effort to continue these relationships.
So maybe more 3-hour lunches.
Definitely. If it's the food is as good as Lebanese food, definitely. But yes.
So what's it like? What are you doing for these 3 hours? Because I lived in Italy, and I mean, they would have 2-hour, 3-hour lunches there. Everything shut down. Nobody worked during, from noon until 3 or 4, and then they go back to the office like at 5 until the evening. But everyone's together, right?
It's definitely not America, right? You have appetizers first, so everyone get there, and a lot of people don't get there on time, but appetizers, and then there's the main dishes, and then you have the sweets, and then maybe sometimes the hookah. So it takes a long time to finish Lebanese lunch.
I mean, but are you guys on your phone, or are you talking to each other?
There's, people are, I would say definitely now the newer generations, I mean, you'll even see grandparents on the phones, right? But definitely people are talking, catching up. There's a lot of, Lebanese culture is there's a lot of humor in the culture too. People are very connected, people are very lively, and it's actually a very resilient population because they've been through a lot. But
I was just going to say that. I mean, there's been so many challenges in Lebanon, a small country that has experienced so many geopolitical, wars and economic hardship, and you're coming through it all.
Yeah, and you still go to the restaurants, and as you go in, you hear people laughing and talking, and this is definitely something that I have missed here. Going to restaurants and everyone is just so connected. But I think right now, if there's a silver lining maybe to this COVID, is now people are going to realize that it is important to stay connected to people, because when you're not, then you just feel like you're on your own, right? And I don't think there's that collective vision when you're on your own. So hopefully that's the silver lining of it.
Well, Hadil, thank you so much for sharing a bit of your culture, and also for taking time to share quite a bit of your expertise. I really do appreciate it. I learned things today that I can incorporate in my daily life, and so thank you so much for joining our little conversation and enlightening us. If people want to learn more about the work that you're doing in the area of mental fitness, or in protecting and providing safe spaces for people, what's the best way for them to do that?
So they can reach me out on my email. So it's going to be my first name is HAD as in David IL .mg@gmail.com. So hadil.mg@gmail.com. I do have an Instagram. It's pretty private and it's just a personal one, and I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but I'm trying to get back on there for business, hopefully. But email is a good way. Always really open to, connecting with people and talking on the phone just for whatever. But thank you so much to both of you, and I have learned a lot too, and I'm pretty impressed by your Lebanese knowing skills, knowledge. So this is amazing.
Oh, well, we're so glad to have you. Thank you so much for sharing that, and I love that you're concerned about compassion fatigue, because it's a real thing, right? When you work so hard and helping other people, you have to stop and take care of yourself. So thank you for sharing that and so much with our listeners today.
Thank you so much, and have a great day to both of you. Thank you.